This is Dr. Moata Kairi Sankara, and we're here with profound conversations, having a discussion about things that matter in our community. This is a broad platform where we engage in the things that promote a healthy community, and we're with Dr. Ted Sutton. Dr. Ted Sutton, welcome to Profound Conversations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Dr. Sutton, we know that you are a native of Baltimore. We know that you have been the character. You were known as Crazy Ted, and that was used in The Wire for Crazy Ted. That how you function, that you were in the streets of Baltimore living this life, and that your mentor, Little Melvin Williams, was one of the main characters on the series,
right.
And that was featured. That's got right, American Gangster. And then we talk about you going from that to Dr. Sutton, who is a CEO and founder of Sutton House Incorporated, and that you possess not only a master's degree in criminology, but also a doctoral degree in the humanities, and also working on another doctorate degree. What is that? Yes. What is that degree in, brother?
Actually, that'll be in pastoral counseling.
Okay. So you talk about pastoral counseling, and that you are renowned in Philadelphia, Chester, Pennsylvania, New Orleans, Atlanta. People know who you are. You've traveled globally to Zimbabwe, South Africa, even to the parts of the United States called Louisiana. I'm just messing with you on that one. So the issue here is that your voice has been one that has gone from the streets to the pulpit. You've gone from one space to another, and you are inspiring individuals to see things in a positive light. And so we are here to talk about something that happened in the streets in part. But before we talk about Freddie Gray in 10 years since that has happened, April 12th, 2015, when he was absconded by the police and thrown into the back of a police vehicle and emerged with a severed spine and died 7 days later on April 19th. Let's talk about what you do, and let's talk about how that undoing impacts what you do. Let's talk about the Sutton House Incorporated.
Okay. Well, you know what? It's funny you mentioned my godfather, Little Melvin Williams, who was very instrumental with me, but I could not mention my family and my DNA and how I got here, because it has a lot to do with where I'm at now. And so, like, my grandfather was one of the deacons for defense that fought against the Klan in Louisiana. My father organized for Dr. King at Sutton and Grambling University. My mother worked for Medgar Evers at Jackson State University. My uncle was a Black Panther out in California, and his son, my cousin, started the new Black Panther Party with Dr. Khalid Muhammad. And so when I mentioned some of these things, I had to understand that part of when it says train up a child. So even though I was that middle child that didn't know who I was and whose I was, it was always destined for me to come back out of that lifestyle to really do what I felt that God was calling me. And so I'm the founder of Sutton House, and under that is People Can Change Youth Movement, and where I work with the young people. And then also I'm the founder of Men Against Murder, where I had 5 different chapters in the country, and I focus on working with some of the roughest people and some of the ones that people have given up on, which is somebody that I felt that I was that person also. So when I'm looking at that gangbang and I'm looking at that Crip or that Blood or the BGF and different things, I'm seeing myself as a person, just a teenager at 17, that I felt was misunderstood.
The last part is heavy. Let me just hit that for a moment, because I want to back up to your DNA, because your DNA is powerful.
Oh yeah.
The last part is about the gang affiliation, and that you saw yourself, or you see yourself as one that others had thrown away. How did you get to that point where you were the one that others had thrown away or had cast aside or thought it would be nothing to nobody?
Well, it's funny, even with having, I say, a very strong community type family, my family wasn't around me the majority of the time. So I was spending a couple of hours with them, but I was feeling the majority of my time with people who did not come from that type of household. And I realized Baltimore was different from the South. And my parents were from the South, but Baltimore kind of move a little different as far as that. And so I realized that, and so in middle school, you know, I ended up hooking up with, and it started out really with some guys taking them 3-pack butter crunch cookies off my tray. And I was like, you know, I'm not going to have this all year. And so I ended up stepping to them, and I was like, yo, for real, I took them back. And then I was like, yo, for real, you're going to have to go through me. You're going to have to kill me for these. Cause I'm not about that. You're not going to punk me. And it was so crazy that I made this statement, you're going to have to kill me for these. And they said, yo, he must be crazy or he don't know who we are. And really, I didn't know who they were. And so, but they, instead of trying to bank me, beat me down or whatever, because it was about 7 of them. And they were just like, yo, we want you, we like you, yo. And they said, man, he crazy. And they called me Crazy Ted. And that was in middle school. And it's so funny that you can Google Crazy Ted to this day, and my face will be the first one to kind of come up. And I think it's unfortunate, because that's why I tell the young people, watch the labels that the streets give you, because you may feel the need to try to live up to it.
Man, right? But it was in defense of your own humanity that you gained Crazy Ted. Crazy Ted, because seen as crazy because you were willing to take a stand for yourself, and then others say, you know what, I like that. That's a power of self determination. Now it took a turn, however, it's powerful nevertheless. And I would talk about your DNA, right? The Deacons for Defense. I think some people actually are not familiar with that story, but you mentioned you were all up and down I-20. As a matter of fact, I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, not knowing about Deacons for Defense, right? These brothers formed in 1964 during the Civil Rights era in Jonesboro, Louisiana. They gained prominence in Bogalusa when they took a stance around this voting. But these black men came together and said, I tell you what, these people are going to go vote today. And so they had 20 chapters in Mississippi and Arkansas, Alabama. And it's imperative to know that if we talk about the Black Panther Party, you mentioned the new Black Panther Party with Khalid Muhammad, that's a whole nother conversation, right? It's still about giving voice to the voiceless, but these people were addressing Jim Crow, armed resistance against their oppressor. And it seems like that was also in your DNA, because you had some resistance against those that were oppressing you.
Yeah. And that's funny you say that, because in Shreveport, Louisiana, my aunt was married to Bishop Anderson, who was with the Church of God in Christ there. And but my grandfather was the one who stood 6'9", size 15 shoe. And he was actually the one that was carrying that shotgun, because the Klan had shot into one of the Church of God in Christ in an area called Greensburg, Louisiana, where my family is from, where actually my family received 70 acres and 2 mules. And they donated the land for one of the first Church of God in Christ churches in Greensburg in Louisiana. And but my grandfather stood tall after they shot and killed a man named Pete Muse on the steps of the church in Greensburg. And then after that, he became part of the Deacons for Defense that would actually protect people and walk people to their wagons when after the Klan had started shooting into the church, because they were upset that white and black parishioners were coming together having service. And my cousin that started it with Dr. Khalid Muhammad is attorney Malik Zulu Shabazz, and I'm sure some people have heard them. That's my first cousin. And so, you know, we are in them civil rights, you know, and so really, you know, I was a fighter on one side or the other. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know, you know what I'm saying, really what side I was supposed to be on, but I was going to be a fighter. I wasn't going to be the wallflower. No way.
Malik Zulu Shabazz is one of my friends, brother.
Okay, that's my closest cousin. He was my best man.
I know your cousin them then. So yeah, we were in grad school around the same time in Washington D.C. as he was getting his law degree. I was finishing my doctoral degree, and we were in the streets, right? That's connecting and professing something about the people, and we still stay in communication periodically to this day. Yes,
Yes.
sir. That's my man. That's my man. All
Hmm.
right. So when you mentioned Grambling, I am a Grambling graduate. You didn't have to mention Southern, but in the context of the fight of liberation, we'll accept that discourse. That and also Jackson State University. People don't understand. Again, these HBCUs that had some major uprisings, especially Jackson and
Yes.
Southern, had some
Yes.
serious uprisings in that era of profound professing people personhood. So, brother, this your DNA is indeed heavy, and you had no other choice. You were called out for the moment. I think maybe you may fight in the moment, but succumbing to the moment. Here we are. Tell us about Sutton House Incorporated.
Okay, well, Sutton House Incorporated is really focusing on trying to go after the ones who people have given up on. And so, we do free computer literacy. We do help with people finding jobs. We even focus on, trying to guide them if they need expungement. We deal with also some brothers who were formerly, incarcerated and different things of that nature. And then also I do a whole nother piece that's just focusing on people can change. And so I go around the country and around the world with a message of hope that, that some of these brothers are exactly what we need, to make this change. I was having a meeting with, and I even told the mayor this. I told, the old governor, and they were saying, we need more police officers. We need stiffer sentences. And I was like, well, actually, what we really need is urban youth specialists. And they said, well, what's that? I said, I just made that word up. I said, it's people who have been there, done that, wrote the book, starred in the movie, but now they denounce the life because some youth are not going to be able to hear even something that they need to hear unless they understand and respect the person that is coming from. And if you haven't walked in any miles in my shoes, then how could you come close to understanding where I'm coming from? And so that is a key piece of what I do as far as even putting my life on the line. If you really look it up, I've saved a girl in a house fire, caught a baby from the third floor, gave him mouth to mouth and brought him back, stopped a carjacker from carjacking somebody on Liberty Road and Northern Parkway. And just different things, took homeless people in, started transitional housing, helping young people to get out of gangs, and so that whole piece, meaning that I feel like a superhero, saying, because, and so my thing is the Rolling Stone magazine, when they asked me, they said, when did you stop being Crazy Ted? I said, I ain't never stopped being Crazy Ted. I said, God changed my foundational belief system. So now I know what's worth dying for.
Wow. So superhero, right? Everybody has a superpower, and you mentioned your superpower, and that is to be an advocate for the people, and that you talk about securing a place for people to grow and to be and to grow, right? Those that have been dispossessed, and I write about this elevating the warrior spirit in Black men, right? The warrior spirit. You say that what we need, not more police. We need to elevate the people that know how to be warriors, how to be fighters.
Right.
If they just know what side to fight for, and sometimes
exactly.
Sometimes we begin to self implode. And so where I was going to go earlier with this idea of the gangs is that when I did research in South Africa, we were looking at socialized institutions in post-apartheid South Africa, and one of the topics came up was about gangs, and so the influence of Black Americans on Africa, the Zulu especially. And what happened was that they said that we asked the question: do gangs exist here, given this idea of abject poverty and white supremacist ideology? And they said no. They may try to identify with that particular culture just for a moment, but we pull them aside and we remember, and we tell them that, remember you're Zulu, remember you're Xhosa, remember you're Swana. And so they go through a rites of passage to bring them back into who they really are. And they become those warriors on the street. They become the warriors who become men who do the profound things. And that's what you mentioned, is about when you can take someone aside and remind them of who they really are. You said whose they are. It allows them to ascend into that greatest possibility. as opposed to descending into the particular ideology that somebody else has implanted within them. And so if we recognize the voice of the oppressor, then we end up with the inward conversation identity. We end up with being a female dog or a garden tool, right? We don't recognize our true humanity. So, brother, this is profound work that you're doing. This is a profound conversation. And so, when we talk about men under assault, black men, and you understand this biblically about kill all the male children. When we talk about black men under assault, this narrative of Freddie Gray speaks volumes to that particular reality. Here we have a young man who was engaged in the process of simply moving about to do something that anyone would do, and he's picked up by the police, and he goes in the vehicle one way and comes out another, comes out destroyed because of something that is so heinous that one would not speak of. That is that there is a devaluation of a black life, of a black male, a devaluation of someone. And so you have some association with that. Talk to us about how that experience, being a part of that particular moment, shifted and changed or informed what you do today.
Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I received that call, and that was a call that I had no idea that it would reach the magnitude that it did. When I received that call, and the young brother, one of his cousins, one of his family members, when he called me and told me, I think he might be dead. I think he was like, yo, if something happens to him, if he dies, he was like, we going. And when soon as he started talking like that, I said, hold on. I said, yo, I can't hear you. Hello, I don't understand you. And then when I talked to him, I said, I'm gonna have to see you in person. And so when I talked to him, I said, I don't talk on the phone like that, because I knew they was getting ready to start talking reckless. And so, and they was just like saying, man, the way they handled him, the way they did, they was like, yo, he might be dead. He's like, if he dies. And I told him, and I said, well, I'm gonna tell you what Lil Melvin told me when I was getting ready to do something real crazy, because of, to the person who pretty much got my house raided. I told him, I said, actually, what I was going to say is, he said, never make any decision out of anger. And whenever you're dealing with a fool, anything that goes wrong is your fault. And when I heard that at that time, that was something that really stuck with me, at that time, because I knew that something had happened. And at this time, we still didn't even know that he was unalive, and he was murdered. And so at that time, there was just a lot of frustration, and people were talking about doing things. And I was just like, and I actually shared with him. I said, well, I'm gonna tell you this, man. I said, the people, whoever that was a part of this, they're going to be on desk duty. So the officers they're going to bring down here are not even going to be the same ones. And I said, and then also, man, I said, if anything kicks off with a war, I said, this is going to be, a situation where martial law is going to come, and it's going to come to the projects. I said, nobody ever taught y'all about guerrilla warfare, so you don't understand where this is going. And I said, this war would be fought right here where Nana and Pop and these children are. So you need to think before you act. Don't make any decision out of anger. And that was really where I was coming from. And it's easier for them to take that from a dude that is a warrior. It's not about fear. But I'm trying to have you to move and not fear and wisdom, because I'm not a checker player, I'm a chess player. And we have to think in that way. And so now, the elderly is supposed to be for wisdom, the youth is supposed to be for war. So I understand that right now, y'all just want a war, and you don't even know how to war yet. And so I'm gonna tell you that whole situation just started to spiral. And then I started to see people trying to do spin on media. And then I even seen some, what I call culture vultures, and some poverty pimps who tried to come in and just play a part. And they just was really just trying to be on the camera. And so it was an unfortunate situation, because I actually had worked with some people down in Sandtown. I had some of my little homies down there in Sandtown. I had one of the young men that, you know, I had worked with when he was going to Northwestern, but he lived down in Sandtown, and that was like my people. So I'm saying that this thing is getting ready to hit hard, and it's going to hit right here where our people is.
And there it is, right? We're talking with Dr. Ted Sutton out of Baltimore, founder, co-founder of founder of, is co-founder or founder?
Well, I'm the founder
of CEO and founder of Sutton House Incorporated, with a master's degree criminology, doctorate degree in humanities, working on another doctorate degree in pastoral counseling. Brother who is from the streets, on the streets, knows the streets. Reiterate for us what little Melvin told you about those two things. Never do anything out of anger.
Right. And then he also said, and remember, whenever you're dealing with a fool, anything that goes wrong is your fault.
There it is right there.
And I love that statement. That statement was something that, you know, I always quote him. I never like try to steal it. I never put it in my book that I made it. I never, you know, saying, because to me, it's about also honoring the people who went before you, who are not here now.
That's it. The code is, right? Circumscribe your actions in a way that you represent yourself at all times. And so I love it. This is Profound Conversations. This is only the first part. There's more to come. We're here with Dr. Ted Sutton.